I've only ever been in love once. It was with a girl I met when I was 18, but I was too young and naive to handle it properly. And I guess I still carry a torch for her.
That man just told a lie. Can you tell why? Let me give you a hint. It shows up about a minute earlier, right here. Telling Lies is the follow-up to 2015's Her Story, a critically acclaimed detective game of sorts that has you sifting through a database of short live-action video clips, trying to solve a mystery that's been chopped into 100 little puzzle pieces. Telling Lies continues in the same vein as its predecessor, this time showing a series of recorded conversations and Skype calls. And as you start diving into those candid conversations and putting the game's puzzle pieces together, they unveil a web of deceit that more than earns Telling Lies' title. But before I start saying too much, let's see how it all turned out. As always, I'm Alex, and this is First 5, where I ask if games are worth your time, not your money. I played a game for 5 hours, and I'm gonna tell you if those were 5 hours well spent. And today we're piecing a mystery back together in Telling Lies. There's a certain type of gamer that would take one look at Telling Lies, automatically put it in a box with walking simulators and other more narrative-focused genres, and dismiss it because it, quote, isn't a game, or some other similar nonsense because you're sitting there watching video recordings instead of racking up headshots. But that is selling Telling Lies horribly short. While mechanically most of what you do is just type in search terms and watch videos, there is so much more that's going on between you and the screen. It may not ask much of your reflexes, but this is by no means a passive game. It instead demands that the analytical part of your brain be firing on all cylinders the entire time you're playing in a way that only a very select few games do. As I illustrated in the intro, Telling Lies gives you so much if you're willing to look closely and engage with it. Clues are everywhere. They're in the set design, they're in video timestamps, and most importantly, almost any phrase someone utters could potentially be a keyword to the next video you're looking for. And every time you follow up on a key phrase you think might lead you somewhere, you get hit by 3 or 4 more, and by the time you even get back to those, you'll have forgotten 2 of them and found another 8 to add to the list. But just because Telling Lies gives you a constant stream of clues doesn't mean it's going to just roll over and let you solve it. Much like its predecessor, the game purposely limits what information you can see. Whenever you search for a phrase, you can only see the first 5 results, along with a few other tricks in how the game presents its footage that explaining would probably count as spoilers. Heck, the game's opening instructions even tell you that your goal is to upload something, but it never tells you what you're actually looking for. And perhaps most interestingly of all, it usually only gives you half the conversation. Because most of Telling Lies videos are all Skype calls recorded from a computer's camera, you can't hear what's being said on the other end of the line. In order to do that, you have to put in the right search term to find another clip containing the opposite side of the conversation. And this was honestly a genius move. My favorite part of this game was hunting through dialogue for specific keywords that might get repeated by both participants, so that I could see each half of a conversation back to back. And this trick often led to some of my biggest breakthroughs. But none of these clever design wrinkles would amount to much without a good story to wrap them around. It's incredibly difficult to talk about this game's plot without spoiling the entire thing, as even the earliest twists and reveals in Telling Lies feel like total game changers. So I unfortunately can only cover the basics. The plot largely follows this guy, David, that I caught in a lie in the intro, and suffice to say, it's far from the only fib he tells. And while the game's trailer plays up its romantic entanglements, it's clear even in the first 15 minutes that this story is going to go beyond the salacious details of who's banging who behind whose back. You're kind of going to have to just take my word for it, but Telling Lies' narrative is excellent. And a large part of that probably comes down to the performances themselves, which are also fantastic. Live-action acting can sometimes be a bit of an awkward proposition in this medium, but Telling Lies' various actors do a phenomenal job bringing it to life. Occasionally, it can feel a bit awkward to just sit there watching them nod for 2 minutes while they listen to a longer speech you can't hear, but considering there's a fast-forward button, it's the smallest of nitpicks I could possibly have with the game. But there's one more thing I need to discuss, and it's something that ties together everything I've talked about so far: the script writing. In addition to the whole telling a good story part, the script also has to account for all the different gameplay design tricks Telling Lies has and how it's going to dole out its breadcrumb trails to you, the player. Like, just as an example, remember that trick I mentioned about finding keywords that both people in a conversation repeat? That's not usually how people talk in the English language, and this script kind of pulls a ridiculous feat by purposely burying words for you to find like that in almost every single one of its conversations, while still making it feel natural. I can't even begin to imagine what a house of cards this script was just from a design perspective, but there's barely a blemish or awkwardly shoehorned phrase in it. Telling Lies makes it all look natural and almost effortless. But it's time for the big question. What do you get out of 5 hours with Telling Lies? While the game says it has a little over 6 hours of clips total, you could still complete it without viewing all of them. In fact, I got to the credits while only seeing about half, and including all the time I spent putzing around making notes, it only took about 4 hours. But man, did I go on a journey in that short time. Telling Lies was phenomenal from start to finish, from my very first suspicions to the final cutscene. Much like her story, this is a mystery that's right up there with the greats. Sam Barlow is 2 for 2, and if you have any interest in narrative-focused games or just want to see one that does things differently, you have to check this one out. Speaking of a good thriller mystery, you should check out my reviews for the similarly excellent Observation and Heaven's Vault, both of which are cool mysteries with unique mechanical hooks. But I hope you enjoyed this first 5 review. If you did, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button. If you're looking for games that value your time and don't pad themselves, I'm your guy. Thanks for watching this far, and I'll see you all next week.